Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Shelby on Safari, the place on YouTube where we love to discuss all things animals, history, and pop culture. As a wild animal biologist, I tend to combine my passions into one. Usually, it's what real-life animal is like a Pokemon. However, tonight we're going down the history route, friends, because goodness knows I love me a bit of history, and hopefully you do too, because in tonight's live stream, we are going to be discussing the two legendary Pokemons that are now in Pokemon Go, friends, Zacian and Zamazenta. Yes, really fun names. Can't wait to say them a whole bunch of times. And we'll see some of their real-life inspirations, like swords and shields from history. And we'll be looking into these a little bit closer to see if they are myth or real. Some of them you may be even able to visit in person, should you be so lucky to make your way over here to the fine United Kingdom, which of course is the region that is very heavily based on, well, Galar is very heavily based on the United Kingdom. Hello, Alice. Hope you're well. And actually, anybody who's watching, please feel free to let me know in the comments. Say hi like Alice has, and love to chat with you all and get your guys' opinions, especially on some of these infamous or famous swords and shields from past, present, and well, obviously not the future, because I am not a fortune teller. That's a different channel here on YouTube. Shelby on the Future spin-off series, maybe? I don't know. But also, if you're watching on repeat, let me know in the comments too. It's always nice to see friends checking in. So not really going to dive too much into Zacian and Zamazenta now for part one of what's currently going on in Pokemon Go, because it is currently happening. So hopefully you all have had a chance to participate in some of the 5-star raids to get either of these legendaries and add them to your Pokedexes. If not, you don't have too much longer. Best get on it. Tonight there was Spotlight Hour, which was Wooloo, which was very exciting. Which, by the way, in case you love Wooloo, like I do, which hopefully you all do, and yeah, want to learn more about Wooloo and its real-life animal counterpart, be sure to check out the rest of my Pokemon animal comparison videos, which I'll pop a link to in the description down below for you to check out later. It is a live stream, and what I do tend to do with my live streams is, because I do talk, and I often talk to you, I add chapters, so then that way you can go directly to the bit that you are keen on. Because if you are a returning friend, you know I often get distracted by the comments. Oh my gosh. Alice is asking, is Tammy here? No, Tammy is downstairs. Tammy's one of my black cats. He's actually been sleeping outside for most of the day. There's a chair in our garden that has a little blanket on it. That's where Tammy was for most of the day. Very hard at work, you know, sleeping and doing things like that. And yeah, no Maui or anybody interrupting as of yet. But truth be told, I wouldn't be surprised if they push their way through the door. Now, yes, let me know in the comments if you do already have Zamazenta or Zacian, the two legendary Pokemon from the Galar region, which were first introduced in Pokemon Sword and Shield on the Nintendo Switch. It's like the classic games where you have to buy either both Sword and Shield or have a friend that plays the other one to complete your Pokedex to get the other legendary. So a nice money-making scheme there, Nintendo. We see what you're doing here. But either way, both look pretty cool. In fact, let me show you what they look like, because I do have that capability. Yes, of course, you can find me over on Instagram, Facebook, Discord, Clubhouse, Instagram, Twitter, all those things. I'm most active on Instagram, and I encourage you guys, if you aren't already, follow me there, because that's usually where I tend to announce that I'm doing a live stream, because I do. Also, you get to see pictures of Tammy the cat, and also get spoilers as to what the upcoming week's video is going to be. Like this upcoming week's video is actually going to be on these guys. Well, partly on California sea lions, because I went to Longleat, which y'all would have seen if you were over on Instagram. Super fun. I actually didn't post as much as I wanted to because I was too busy having a good time. And so also making sure y'all didn't see spoilers for Friday's video. But it's really, really exciting. Can't wait for y'all to see it. But anyways, let's show you Zamazenta and Zacian. And yeah, take a guess as to which one represents the sword and which one represents the shield. These are actually their warrior forms. Actually, not their warrior form. What is it? Hero of many battle forms. So they have two different forms, and when they switch forms, whether with a rusted sword or a rusted shield, they then become crowned sword and crowned shield form, which looks a bit more spiffy, which I'll show you after. Interestingly, they do change forms. So Zacian, which is the one on your left, so that one, that's more of the sword type, because if you give him the crown sword, he goes from just fairy to fairy and steel. Now, when Zamazenta, the other one, way over on the far side, the one that's more red in color, also a warrior Pokemon, when you give him the rusted shield, he then changes form into crowned shield, which is a fighting and steel type form. So it'll be very interesting to see how they do this in Pokemon Go, if you'll have a chance to have the item, or if you'll have to walk with them for so many miles to catch it, or if they'll do what they've done with some of the other forms, is just have it as a separate raid battle in the future. Let me know your thoughts of what you think they'll do. I have a feeling they'll probably go follow the trend of previous formed Pokemon of having it be something completely separate. Alice asks, where is Wooloo? Yeah, if you saw the Wooloo video, our friend Rita mentioned a video where I guess like a priest in a game, he says Wooloo to like bless people or something. And so yeah, Wooloo, you can see how the two kind of blended into one. But yes, no Woolooloos here tonight. Although I should get a Wooloo toy. Although I have my Alolan Vulpix back there. Actually, I can't see it because the Zamazenta Zacian friends are in the way. Anyways, now what I find curious when I was doing my research for these friends is that, there you can see their crowned form. So you can see they get a bit fancy with the sword and the shield in this one. A bit more flamboyant, I'd say. Are they siblings or are they rivals? I couldn't quite get the right gist from looking into it. And when you play the game, you come across, one or the other, depending what game you're playing. In the anime, you Go and Ash both had one kind of as their teammate. I don't know if they're siblings. I mean, obviously they must have some similarities, but I don't like the idea of them being rivals, because together you would use a sword and a shield together, which conveniently enough in the games and in the anime, and spoilers and a possible hint for what's coming in Pokemon Go, Eternus. Yeah, it's been a long day. The craziest, weirdest Pokemon that was introduced in Galar. And that's saying a lot, because there was a teacup that was in Pokemon Sword and Shield. Yeah, Eternus, the big, like, dark black hole guy. Yeah, that you needed to defeat him. You needed these two to work in your favor. And so that's what was in the legends of past, is that Zacian and Zamazenta came together to help the rulers of Galar defeat the Darkest Night, Eternatus, things like that. And so it's very much reminiscent of the hero's journey, that classic, these are the different steps that a hero must take. And actually, in part 2 of this live stream, I'm going to introduce you guys to a hero that I had no idea existed until I came over here to England. And one might argue, get this, controversial, hot take Shelly, they call me. I don't know, I kind of like it better than Arthur, in the sense where it's a little bit more interesting, depending on which form you read, because obviously I know the Arthurian legend has many different versions, and we will obviously talk about that, because I'm going to introduce you to 3 swords and 3 shields throughout history that are either real or fake. That's up for you to decide. But interesting about the hero's tale. So that is that. Now I'm going to go back to my face for a while before we get to that. Rita Pettigrew. You guys are too funny. Alrighty, friends. So I gave you a little bit of a hint as to the first one with that picture. But again, just to recap, for those of you who may be new, I see a few new friends have joined us. Welcome back to Shelby on Safari. We're talking history in Pokemon tonight, friends. It's a little bit different than the usual animal Pokemon comparisons or Animal Crossing comparisons and things like that. Yeah, I know I'm a wild animal biologist, but I also love history. And I did study a fair bit of it. I almost double majored, but I didn't have enough funds or time to do that, unfortunately. But I read a lot of history in my spare time. And so tonight we are going to look into possible influences of Zacian and Zamazenta, the two legendary Pokemon of the Galar region that are now in Pokemon Go and released. Of course, you can find them in Sword and Shield, but I wanted to discuss these two because of the obvious links to the Galar region and the UK. So I've narrowed down tonight's 3 swords and 3 shields to the United Kingdom, not just England. And so for my American friends and friends around the world who are watching, the United Kingdom is comprised of Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and England. And so that is the United Kingdom, and it's not just England. England's its own separate thing. So for the Galar region, I thought it was quite a nice mix of the United Kingdom. You know, definitely some Welsh references. Our favorite Woolulu was in there, and so on and so forth. And so that's why I looked a bit more broad scale for tonight. Which, in fact, for the first tale of a sword, we're going up to Scotland. Now, does anybody in the chat know where this is at? I told you Scotland, but does anyone know where in Scotland this is at? I'd be most curious, because, yeah, testing their geography. I know some of the friends in the audience do like a crossword puzzle. It's a bit different of a crossword puzzle. I don't know. I'd be keen to see if you guys know, because this is actually a place where I have been. I haven't actually been to this monument pictured, but I've seen it from a castle. And yes, this statue, I'm trying not to give it away. I'm trying to see if anybody's going to guess where it's at. It's a monument, if you will, to a certain famous individual who lived from 1270 to 1305, who was the leader of the First War of Independence in Scotland. This sword in particular, debatable if it's actually this person's. That's up for you. That's for you to decide. But this sword, I feel we should mention just how big it is, because this picture does not do it justice. It's 1.63 meters long and weighs about 3 kilos. Now, this sword in particular, it is designed, because of its weight and length, is designed to be used with 2 hands. But with that in mind, to be able to use it with 2 hands, given its height, or given its length and its weight, a person would have had to be 6 feet 7 inches tall to be able to use it, which, coincidentally enough, the time frame of which the person this sword is associated with, the average height for a Scotsman in the 13th century was about 5 feet tall. So that's part of the reason why people are like, I don't think it's his. There's many different reasons. And I actually popped a link in the description down below as to why that is. Another reason is this sword, the first record of it dates from 1505. So almost, like 200 years after this person died. Does anybody know who it is? No, it is not Wales, Katie. It's in Scotland. It is actually Stirling. So Stirling, that's not Stirling Castle, but Stirling Castle, you can actually see it from this picture. But it's a beautiful castle in Scotland. Highly recommend you go. Actually, for my Harry Potter fans in the audience, who I know you are there, the inside Stirling Castle, there was a tapestry on the wall, and I swear it's used in Harry Potter in the Gryffindor common room. I know, because I'm a Gryffindor. I know my friends who are watching might not be Gryffindors, but it was of the unicorn, because symbol of Scotland, sitting, and it was like a fence around it. I have a picture of it. I'm going to try to share it on Instagram later if I can find it. But I remember seeing it and going, oh my gosh, I've seen this before. Where have I seen this? And then I made the connection. I'm pretty sure it was at Stirling Castle when I went. Anyways, so this sword belongs to, or rumored to belong to, William Wallace. Like I mentioned, I gave the hint that he was the leader of the First War of Independence in Scotland, also known as Braveheart, for those who may have seen the movie, things like that. So it is believed to be his sword, but like I've said, a lot of historians have argued actually there's a lot of factors that tend to make them a little less agreeable that it is in fact his sword. It's more, they say, obviously, given the pride, the national pride of, that sword, it's more about what the sword represents rather than it actually being his sword. And so it's called the Wallace Sword. And it's still an impressive real life sword. Like we saw, it's really big, over 6 meters in length and weighs about 3 kilos. That's a pretty hefty sword. And so I think even though if there's that bit of hesitation, I don't think it belonged to William Wallace, it's still quite cool, and it's a nice thing to hopefully go and see. If you do want to go visit the William Wallace kind of memorial there at Stirling, definitely, have a check of it, because it does look pretty cool. So that is the Wallace Sword. So the first of the 3 swords I'm going to introduce you to and discuss with you that I think are possible inspirations for our friends Zamazenta and Zacian, the sword and shield-like Pokemon that were introduced in Galar, but now are playable in Pokemon Go. Friends, I should show you a picture of William Wallace, though, because he is quite the guy. Let's see. Yeah, there's another picture of the Wallace sword, so you can see quite how big it is. And oh my gosh, could you imagine lifting that 3 kilos? I don't know quite how practical that would be, honestly, but it does look pretty cool. I mean, as far as swords go, I guess. I've done a little fencing in my time, but I certainly haven't done anything with swords that big. Gee whiz. So, friends, that's William Wallace, an artistic representation of William Wallace, in case you didn't know. And should we move on to the next one? If I can go. Here we are. All right, so friends, I have a question for you. What was the original Latin name for King Arthur's sword? You have 3 options there: Calburn, Curtis, and Gladius. So, test of knowledge, little bit of trivia for you, friends. I love a good bit of multiple choice. And I felt like we would have to discuss King Arthur's sword for obvious reasons, given he's probably one of the more well-known characters. And as many people, myself included, I'd love to think that he was real. And, Camelot, it's very endearing. In fact, here in England, here in the fine land of Hampshire, in a city that I'm quite familiar with, known as Winchester, there is a round table in the Great Hall in the city of Winchester, which wasn't quite King Arthur's, but Henry VIII had it painted with his likeness as almost him as King Arthur. A very interesting move on his part, in my opinion, to kind of raise morale, and as if he wasn't, full of himself already. Yeah, might as well put a picture of myself on a round table. Why not? It's really impressive. Certainly a structure, if you are in the neck of the woods of Hampshire, definitely come check out, because it's pretty cool. But yeah, I don't know. I've read a lot of books. I've watched a lot of documentaries and things like that. And I don't know. I'd like to think he's real, but probably more so based on a person, and then elaborated by our friend Geoffrey of Monmouth, of course. But anyways, any options? Katie says A. Calburn. Oh, I almost say California, but that's not quite the case. And indeed, Katie is right, friends. Calburn is the original Latin name for King Arthur's sword. Now, here comes the fun bit. For those of you that saw my adventure to Wales a few weeks ago, I had the pleasure of attempting to pronounce Welsh words. And as such, tonight is going to be a continuation for that very same awkwardness where I tried to pronounce Welsh words. This is for my friend Sean, who lives in Wales. She's tried to help me with some of the pronunciation of things, but I fear our friendship might be troubled after my pronunciation of the Sword of Arthur being called Caldefolk? Caldevish? I'm going to type it and put it in the chat so you guys can see what I'm trying to say. Caldefolk. I'm sure there's like a k in there somewhere, but I don't know where, but it's fun to say. There we go. I think I spelled it right. Yes. Yes. Anyways, that was the sword of Arthur in Welsh, and according to our friend Geoffrey of Monmouth, he's written that Calburn was forged at the Isle of Avalon, and then later on, it's described that Excalibur, going by the name now Excalibur, was given to Arthur by the Lady of the Lake. So a few interesting takes and turns. One thing that I mention, because I don't know, I feel so often we talk of Excalibur and, the Sword in the Stone, a great Disney film, and different adaptations seem to always focus on Excalibur, and that's, pretty cool. But the scabbard of Excalibur was quite powerful. I didn't realize until relatively recently that the scabbard almost had more power than Excalibur, one could argue, because it prevented the bleeding from wounds. And so, like, if a soldier had the scabbard on him, and he got injured in battle, he wouldn't really die. He'd be quite invincible, with that scabbard around him. And so as long as you were wearing it, you were safe. And so I thought that was rather intriguing, and it doesn't come up much. And yeah, I felt it was a notable mention to the legend of Excalibur. And of course, another sword where, not quite hasn't been found. I feel like that's airing more on the myth side, but let me know in the comments below if you believe the legend of Excalibur and King Arthur. That'd be quite cool, but it definitely was worth a mention while looking into some of the famous swords of the UK region. Now, friends, it is going to be time for story time with Shelby tonight. And I feel like Maui should join me for this. And I'm going to change the screen to that. No. Should we watch Excalibur when it's story time with Shelly? Let's see. What's the next slide? Sorry, I'm trying to multitask and it's getting there. Where are we going? No, we'll keep it on Excalibur for this story time. So, actually, I know what we'll do. We'll make me big. This next one, in the beginning, I tempted you guys with tales of a character who I feel could be better than King Arthur. I know, controversial, but hear me out. And apologies if you've already heard of this guy. This guy is literally a guy of Warwick. And the sword that I'm going to be sharing, more so about the guy who owned it, quite literally. I'm going to find this so funny. The dude that owned it was Guy of Warwick. Now, I mentioned in the beginning how sometimes it seems like people are plucked from history and then their tales elaborated and there's different influences. So the inspiration, if you will, for Guy of Warwick was the Anglo-Norman warrior Guy de Warwick. Now, it's spelled a little differently, and I tried to say it with an accent to make it look cool, but essentially Guy of Warwick, who first appears in the 13th century. Now, whether he was real or not, I don't know. It gets kind of muddled, but his tale, I wish he was real. If even a part of this actually happened, I feel like it's quite cool. And I will actually put up some pictures because it will make it a bit more interesting for you friends. So this is an actual sword that is in existence. It's apparently his sword. Now we'll go into kind of why he's so cool now. So this guy was a humble cupbearer at the court of the Earl of Warwick. So Earl's pretty cool. He has a nice court. And then there's Guy, who's a bit low on the totem pole, if you will. He's just a cupbearer. But this Earl of Warwick guy, he's not alone in his court. He has a beautiful daughter named Felice. And of course, tale as old as time, Guy falls in love with Felice. But because of his low social standing and whatnot, he wasn't good enough, if you will, to win her hand in marriage. So he was quite bummed with that. But did Guy just sit around being a cupbearer? No. Guy pulled himself up by his breeches, or trousers of the day, and he went out to prove himself worthy for Felice's hand in marriage by accomplishing quite a few different things, one of which defeating the Dun cow. And in a few places in England, is it Dunfordshire? Dun. There's a few places that have Dun in the name. Apologies, I should have written them down, but I got distracted by it because a few of these, within these locations, there are pubs named after the Dun cow, and alluding to this legend of Guy of Warwick, which was quite cool, and I thought that was quite amazing. The pub names here in Britain are fantastic. There's like the Queen's Head, the King's Head, the Fox and the Hounds. There's so many different fun, funky names for pubs here in England. As if going to the pub wasn't fun enough, it gets even better when you find out the name of a pub. But anyways, so Guy defeated the Dun cow. He defeated a giant boar. He even kills a dragon, apparently. I mean, talk about really trying to prove yourself worthy, to be a knight, to get the lady. I mean, that's some hardcore stuff. Of course, after all of this, he becomes a knight, and he's like, yeah, all right, I'm cool. I'm sure I'm worthy enough now for her hand in marriage. I'm sure the Earl of Warwick will let me marry his daughter, which the Earl was quite kind to let him do. And so Guy marries Felice, and he's like, yeah, we're married. And they're like, woohoo, we're married. But Guy feels bad for all the red in his ledger. It's not happily ever after. He's a bit bummed about the things he's done, the people he's killed, whatever else he got up to, his crazy adventures. And so he decides to go to Jerusalem as a pilgrim, and he wears a gold ring on his finger as a promise to return to his wife. Now, at this point, Felice, I think she was pregnant, and she was quite sad. Sorry, I keep hitting my microphone because I'm talking with my hands. She was quite bummed that he was leaving, and rightly so, because, he was gone for a while trying to prove himself, and then he comes back, and who knows how long they had together, type of thing. But yeah, she's pretty bummed out. But while he's traveling to Jerusalem, Guy seems to have a heart of gold, for while he's traveling, he travels in disguise as a, pilgrim in various different guises. He helps those in need, and he kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say Robin Hood-esque, but you get the similar kind of vibes where he's there to help people. He's trying to be the best person he can be in defending the poor, defending the needy, that kind of thing. He's there to do that. And he returns to England after his Jerusalem and, helping people trip. He returns to England to find it under threat from the Danes. And Guy being Guy, apparently he likes to play dress up and likes to be in disguise. He still is disguising himself as a pilgrim. I don't know if this is because he's so famous in the story. Maybe he's trying to hide from the paparazzi. I don't know. But disguised as a pilgrim, he arrives in Winchester. Most intriguing. And King Athelstan at this point, who actually, might I add, even though this story is a bit possibly elaborate, King Athelstan did exist. But anyways, the Danes' champion, who apparently is camping out near Winchester and threatening Winchester, because Winchester was a very important city, quite on par with London in terms of importance in English history, one might say. Obviously, I'm a bit biased, but it was quite an important city. It was under threat from the Danes, and this Colbrond guy was huge. He was huge, and he was ready to do some serious damage, apparently. And Athelstan was like, oh my God, what do I do? And he was literally like, oh my God, because apparently he went to pray and was visited by an angel, conveniently enough. And the angel told him that his champion, who will defend Winchester and England and defeat the Danish champion, would be at the north gate of Winchester the next day. And interestingly enough, surprise, surprise, who was at the north gate that morning? Well, it was Guy, disguised as a pilgrim. And there are many different gates Guy could have gone to. The south gate, the west gate, the East Gate, some of which you can actually still see in Winchester. The West Gate you can see. It has a brilliant museum, might I add. It's actually right next to the Round Table. Interesting. Anyways, so Guy, here's apparently artistic representation of our hero, Guy, defeating Colbrand, the giant. And so Guy, he's the one closest to me with the sword. He has his hand positioned behind his back. Very posh, very posh. But yes, holding his sword and defending the country, and, being the hero yet again. And sadly, the story doesn't end there. You would think, okay, he's defended England. He's going to go back to his wife and live happily ever after. No. Guys, this is this is the bit sadder, darker times. Medieval times weren't as pleasantly romantic as we thought they would be. He returns to his wife, but he's still disguised. And actually, he's invited with a group of other poor men, other poor pilgrims, to actually eat at the castle, but he just takes them at the castle gates, maybe just to see his wife, be like, oh, but she obviously doesn't recognize him at this point, which is really sad. And he's like, okay, I think I'm going to go. I'm going to go to a hermitage near Avon, Stratford upon Avon, I believe, and a beautiful city as well. And he goes to find that the hermit has died, which is obviously quite sad, because he had the hopes to go to take some time away and see what to go do next. And when he finds the hermit has died, he decides to replace the hermit. And so he himself becomes the hermit and hangs out for goodness knows how long, but long enough to when he feels that he himself is about to die. What does he do? He still has that ring on his finger, so he sends it to his wife, Felice, and as a message that he's about to die, almost. Maybe he wrote something with it. But either way, she gets the message, and she comes to him, and they are reunited at last and die together. So I guess it is kind of happy at the end, but I don't know. I read that and I was like, dude, that's harsh. Like, goodness gracious. And I know Arthur doesn't have it easy in legend, but Guy of Warwick, goodness gracious, talk about a dude. He's out there trying to help people. And then, actually, let's go back to his sword so you can see. Now, his sword was actually paid to be protected by none other than Queen Elizabeth I. So this sword was quite, again, another gesture of almost, more what it represents than almost who it actually belonged to, because, sources, did this guy actually exist? Who knows? But the more representation of what you get from that story, the ideals of what a man of that time should aspire to be like, with his, helping others and, going on a quest, going to Jerusalem as a pilgrim, things like that. It's quite interesting to see how that can tell you a lot about a culture at that time, of what they value, their value structure, if you will, which I find fascinating. But I should mention, because I find it hilarious, knowing the city of Winchester nowadays, that alas, our friend Guy of Warwick didn't really probably defeat a champion. In fact, rather than the stakes of Winchester being decided in a single battle by a champion from the Danes and a champion from the English, oh no, Winchester was quite wealthy and still is. And so they were actually saved by a payment of money. They paid off their attackers to save the city, which I find absolutely amazing, because I bet that would hold true today. Although they'd probably pay in coffee, because there's a lot of really good coffee shops and a lot of really good independent ones. My friends at the Winchester Coffee Roasters, fantastic place to get a good cup of coffee. They actually ship the beans as well, and Char Teas of Winchester. Again, they ship as well. Love those places. Support local businesses. But yeah, I feel like they would pay off people with coffee and tea and nice food and drink, because that's what we have in Winchester. Anyways, so that was Guy of Warwick and the Guy of Warwick sword, which apparently is still around today. So who knows? I'll leave you to decide if you want to think he was a real solid dude, or was he, just maybe a myth? but at least we can see the sword is real. Who it belongs to, what the real story is, we don't know. But it's nice to imagine and have that. So those were the three swords friends of the Galar region in real life, the United Kingdom. We went to Scotland for William Wallace. We then went to Camelot and learned a little bit more about Excalibur and Caliburn, the original Latin name for Excalibur. But then we also went kind of around the world and more down south, I guess, with the Guy of Warwick's sword. So now it's time to talk about shields. Oh, yeah. And the first one up is the buckler shield, because I feel I want to represent kind of Wales, and Wales was a fantastic place to visit. I love Wales. Snowdonia is incredible. South of Wales, where the Gower Peninsula is, that was beautiful. And again, if you want to explore and see some of these places, come along with me on some of my safaris, like the Wales Adventure. You'll get to see plenty of footage. I fear not enough, because I didn't really take as much as I should have, because I was too busy swimming in the ocean. Sorry, not sorry. So this is the buckler shield. It was popular in medieval Wales, and although it looks quite big in this picture, if I do this, look, it's itty bitty. It's a small round shield. Not really as big as Captain America's shield. Obviously, I have to talk about Captain America's shield ever so briefly because, represent. I'm wearing my Avengers jacket today because it's actually quite cold today. Anyways, the buckler shield. It was originally made from leather that was reinforced with iron or brass fittings. And what I love about this is the circular structure on this one. Like, it just looks really cool, like almost entrancing, like hypnotizing your enemies. Like, ooh, I don't know. I just like the picture of this one and thought it was cool. So with the buckler shield, as we saw, actually, I'll go back to this dude. It was for use in your left hand while you fought with your sword in your right hand. So I don't know, actually, in the old days, I wonder, I have a feeling they probably were like, no, this is the way you're going to use it. Like, if you were left-handed, if you could fight with your left hand, they probably would ban that, knowing that, which is sad. But yeah. Actually, we had a discussion the other day, my friends and I, about goofy and regular footers. I'd be curious if you know if you're a goofy or regular footer. Let me know in the comments below. Goofy footers have their left foot back and the right foot forward, whether you're on a skateboard or a surfboard or things like that. And then regular footers have their right foot back behind them and their left foot forward. Let me know what you are in the comments. I am a goofy footer. Represent. Anyways, speaking of left and right, now I want to mention John Talbot, or Talbot, as I'm informed that it's pronounced, the second Earl of Shrewsbury. He was described as a boar of steel shields. Like, what a name to be known as. Like, what a nickname. I was on this site where I was doing some research, and I just thought that was a hilarious nickname for someone. It was actually in a poem that he was being described as this boar of steel shields. Like, that just sounds like pretty intimidating, don't you think? Now, Terrian was a common word for shield in medieval Welsh. I had to throw in a Welsh word in there, even if it was medieval, because I feel like I could actually pronounce it. I will write it in the comment. You've heard that's Rita's nickname too. Boar of steel shields. Oh my gosh. What a nickname. I feel like that could be like on, like when someone introduces you, like if you're getting married or something, when they're like, oh, welcome, Mr. and Mrs. Talbot, for example, because it was John Talbot. And they're like, they are a boar of steel shields. And then like you walk in and you're like, yeah, that's us. Yeah. I don't know, just a thought. But Terrian, this is the medieval word for shield in Welsh. Let me know if you think I'm saying it right. Oh goodness, yeah. I don't know. I just this sword, just that one's definitely a bit more elaborate than the other one we saw, but it was still cool nonetheless. Now we are going to shift gears. So obviously that's a real sword that has been used. People have used it, and they still use it in reenactments, as you can see today. That kind of shield, the buckler shield. Now we're going to talk about a different shield, a shield that is associated with our friend King Arthur, who we mentioned earlier. Now, King Arthur's legendary shield, which you can kind of see here, was adorned apparently with the image of the Virgin Mary, according, once again, to our friend Geoffrey of Monmouth, the writer, one of the foremost writers of Arthurian legend. And his shield goes by many different names. Obviously, we are more acquainted with Excalibur, or Caliburn, as we now know it's called in Latin. But his shield should get a mention as well, because I feel that's equally as important, because obviously you want to fight, and defend yourself with your sword, but you got to defend yourself as well with the shield. Very important. We see it, it can have many different uses, but it has many different names, his shield. Pridwin? Yes, Pridwin. I'm going to go with Pridwin, and I know that's probably wrong. Pridwin. I'm typing it again. Ooh, Pridwin. There we are. That is his shield. Now, Pridwin was also the ship of King Arthur, according to the Welsh poem, The Spoils of Annwfn. And so then I guess that can kind of lead into some confusion. Was it his ship? Was it his shield? But never fear, because that was in the Welsh poem, The Spoils of Annwfn, which Annwfn, actually, I believe I'm saying that one right, because I looked it up frantically trying to make sure I would pronounce some of these right. Annwfn is actually spelled like that. Isn't that cool? Welsh is amazing. But yeah, Annwfn, I believe. Now, another word in Welsh, because why not put another one in to embarrass me? The Welsh also referred to the shield of Arthur as Glether. Yes, because there is a "cl" in there somewhere, and you're going to see why in a second. That's it. I'm copying and pasting this one into. People who are watching later are going to be like, why are there so many weird words? Shelby doesn't know how to spell, but it's because I'm spelling Welsh. Look at that word. Friends, tell me. Welsh people are really cool too. That's right, they are. And actually, speaking of Welsh things that are actually cool, chocolate chip Welsh cakes. Yeah, hot take. Come at me. They were really nice. As someone who doesn't like raisins and sultanas, I found it an excellent alternative. And if you put them on a griddle, get them nice and warm, the chocolate chips melt, and it's just right. Just right. Although I will say, at Dave's in Swansea, in the Mumbles, I did try actually one of their proper Welsh cakes that did have either sultanas and raisins in it, and it was good for something that had raisins and sultanas in it. Would I have it again? Probably not, because the chances are if I was having one, I'd also be close by Joe's ice cream, which I'm a bit more biased to. But anyways, attack on culture. No. They're all right. They're all right. Okay, hold on. What if I was really allergic to raisins and sultanas and I really wanted to embrace the Welsh culture while I was down there? Would you be giving me a hard time? Because I'm pretty certain my fear of raisins and sultanas is rooted in me being allergic. Actually, no, I'm just pulling at strings. Oh no, hot take. The comments are going off the hook. Sadly, though, while trying to get back on track and talk about the shield of Arthur, there's not much information out there with regards to his shield. Obviously, a few other things take precedence, but I feel like it was an honorable mention since we mentioned Excalibur. Now, the last shield I want to talk about before we go is this beauty. Now, we've talked a lot of swords of mythology, shields of mythology with King Arthur's sword and shield. But this is a real shield that you can actually see in real life if you come to England, like Guy of Warwick's sword and the Wallace Sword up in Scotland. This is the Battersea Shield, and it is stunning. Absolutely stunning. If you go to the British Museum, there are so many incredible artifacts that you need to see, but the Battersea Shield is certainly one of them. Now, it's not actually a complete shield, and well, that's because it was the metal cover, this bit that you see here, was just a metal cover that was attached to the front of a wooden shield. So it was far bigger, far more elaborate, but of course, over time, the wood disintegrated and thus leaving the metal bit behind. Now, it's believed to be produced between 350 BC and 50 BC. So quite a big range, and there's a few different reasons because of that, but that's a rough estimate as to when it was made. Now, what is it made of? Which I found particularly keen with. Our friends at the British Museum had a closer look, and the metal components of this shield are roughly 85% copper, 10% tin, and 5% lead, which is a nice mixture. And you can kind of see there's some red detailing within the circles there. I'm sure, obviously, it would have been a bit brighter. And the reason why it's probably so not as well as it could be, for lack of a better phrase, even though, what are we talking, 350 BC? I think it's in pretty good condition, to say the least, but it's probably because of where it was found. Now, for those of you who haven't had the pleasure of being to London quite yet, London is revolving around a wonderful river named the Thames, but it looks like you say Thames, but it's Thames. It is spelled with an A. But this beautiful shield was actually found in the Thames shortly before 1856, when they were kind of digging it up and making preparations to build another bridge to connect kind of London ever more so. Always need a bridge in London, that's for sure. And yeah, they dug it up, and wow, we got so lucky. Like, that is just a beautiful piece of craftsmanship from the early years. My goodness, what a brilliant example of a shield, even though it's not a complete shield. As I said, it would be attached to a wooden bit there, but it is stunning. And yeah, I wonder the stories that it must have seen and what it could have seen during its heyday, if it was even used. I mean, it's quite ornamental. I wonder if it was more just, a sword that you have hanging on your wall. But yeah, that is the Battersea Shield. So, friends, I've just looked at the chat and I can see Alice has been picking out the raisins since 1995. Oh, good. Okay, so I'm allowed to pick out the raisins. I just feel like when picking out the raisins or picking out anything from something, I don't want to, upset anybody with that, because especially if there's a lot of raisins in them, there's not going to be anything else to really eat because your crumbs are going to get all over. But if you start with chocolate... Oh, you decided to come say hi. You snuck in. Oh, it's Maui, everybody. Maui says hi. Have you bought your Maui merchandise yet? If you haven't, you should. What are you doing? Did you eat dinner? No, not yet. You getting hungry? It's your time. Maui's such a good helper. Today, he was helping me get my diary sorted. He's been ever so helpful, haven't you? Yes. What item would you like, Maui? If you could choose between one of the swords and the shields, which one would you go for? Maui says he'd go for Excalibur, so he could rule us all. I don't blame you, Maui. That definitely seems like a Maui answer. To me, that is for sure. He's starving. Yes, Maui's always starving. I do feed my cats, I assure you. Well, friends, let me know in the comments which sword or shield you would want if you could have one, whether it be a real one or a fake one. Would you get the really big, really heavy sword of possibly William Wallace, the Wallace Sword, 3 kilograms? That's a lot of sword. Or would you go for, the Battersea Shield that, quite ornamental, might look nice in a living room per se? Or would you want to be like Maui and go for Excalibur? Let me know in the comments down below. I mean, the buckler shield, the small little one, that would be quite cool and quite nifty for, closeness. And it had like the hypnotizing circles on that one design. That might be quite cool as well. Or Guy of Warwick's sword, given, Guy of Warwick being a gentleman of outstanding character, an exemplary dude. Would you go for his sword maybe? I'm not sure. I don't show. Katie says Excalibur as well. Very good. Very good. Yes, there's so many amazing Arthurian legends and things of where people think, he might have come from and things like that. I know the Scottish also have a claim that possibly, King Arthur, the legend could have come from Scotland as well. Oh God, what was the name of the show? I love it. Has Josh Gates as the presenter. Expedition Unknown. I love that show just because he really goes into the history as well of some of these things. One of my favorite episodes actually was him looking into the case of D.B. Cooper. And it was just absolutely fascinating because he does take it and he does interview people who, experts in the field, people who are really passionate. And some of the adventures he goes on are fantastic. So I recommend it. If you're up for a good laugh, he's quite a funny guy as well. Love to have him over for dinner. I bet he'd be a cracking dinner guest. That is for sure. But yeah, I don't know. I think biasly, I'd go for the Battersea Shield only because I saw it in person and only because it just looks really cool and really pretty. I don't know. I do love a bit of Celtic art. So I'm not going to lie. I'd probably go for that. I mean, look at the swirls. Look at the swirls, guys. That is so pretty. Actually, reminds me of the Eternals, one of the Marvel films that are coming out soon. Quite excited for. Obviously not as excited for the Eternals as I am for Spider-Man No Way Home, but that's for another Shelby on Safari video. Well, friends, I think we are coming down to the end. I encourage you, if you haven't already, be sure to join the safari both here on YouTube as well as Instagram and all these different places. Over the next few weeks, things are going to be a little bit tricky. I have some exciting news I can't quite share yet, but a lot of big changes coming to me. Yeah, to me. Do. Yeah, I'm not going to start singing the Queen song because I don't have the rights to it. But yeah, so hold on to your butts, as they say in Jurassic Park, because things are going to get crazy. But never fear, I won't forget the channel. We'll still be continuing to look at animals and pulp culture and going on zoo trips and trips around the country, because this Friday I'm bringing you to the beautiful Longleat Safari Park, where you can see real California sea lions, amongst feeding lorikeets and binturongs, my favorite. Got some cute pictures. One of my favorite pictures I actually posted today because his tongue was sticking out. Oh, he was so cute. But I encourage you guys, join that safari. Check out the rest of my Pokemon videos, which are more traditional in the sense where we look at a real life Pokemon rather than looking at history. But I thought we'd mix it up a bit because who doesn't love a bit of history, eh? Well, friends, I think that is Maui scratching at the door for me to tell him go feed him dinner because, as Alice kindly says, he is starving. Not. The amount of dreamies that cat has had over the weekend, he is not starving. But anyways, hope you guys have a great rest of the night or day wherever you're at in the world. Thank you so much for joining me in tonight's adventure down through the history books to look at the swords and shields of the UK region, both of myth and of real life, to see possible influences on the amazing legendary Pokemon that are Zamazenta and Zacian. And as I mentioned, they are in Pokemon Go. Be sure to get yours quickly in 5-star raids before they disappear back into the history books, or you can trade one with a friend, I guess. But anyways, get yours now before they go, and before Hoopa comes in September, which I feel like we will have to do another live stream on Hoopa. Were you surprised? That's a deep cut there. Anyways, have a good night, and I will see you all in the next video, which, by the way, should be the Wooloo video. Wooloo, Wooloo. Go click it. I'll pop it down in the description below. Have a good night, guys. Bye.